Super Senpai Podcast.
Welcome to the Super Senpai Podcast. This is a weekly episodic tokusatsu-related podcast where we're talking about fights and tights. I'm Pat.
And I'm Grant. And it's good to be back here this week. And this week, instead of pretending to be surprised, I'm going to introduce our guest. It's going to be my good buddy. You know him from Twitter, and also as a certified new type. Welcome to the show, Tom Aznable.
Hey everybody, it's me, Tom.
Welcome.
Thanks so much for being on the show. I've had you on BLT before, but this will be a slightly different context because we're not talking about anything Gundam, not here or on Cockpit. So
I'll find a way to slip it in.
Yeah, it's fine. I mean, no complaints here. So tell us a little bit about like your background, just kind of with tokusatsu in general.
So actually, me being kind of a lifelong fan of giant robots, more so on the anime side. Tokusatsu was actually pretty formative in me kind of discovering that in general. So I grew up in the 90s, and that's when there was this huge glut of Tokusatsu being brought over by Saban in one form or another. My parents actually originally bought into the whole Power Rangers is like ultra-violent sort of hysteria that was going around at the time. So I wasn't actually allowed to watch Mighty Morphin Power Rangers when it came out.
Oh, the forbidden fruit.
Chancing upon the last 10 minutes of an episode or so, I happened to see a Megazord fight. So I knew that if I at least tuned in at that point of each show, I would see something I would like. And then they had the Green with Evil miniseries, which introduced a new Ranger whose name I happened to share. And from that point, I was basically watching Power Rangers whether my parents liked it or not.
Nice.
But it wasn't just that. I was also watching VR Troopers. I watched Masked Rider. Mm-hmm. Later on, I would watch Big Bad Beetleborgs. They haven't particularly aged well. And Superhuman Samurai Cyber Squad.
That grid.
Yep,
man.
which that anime that's coming out of it has a reference to that American title in it, which is incredible. But
that's awesome.
Yeah, so and I definitely watched Power Rangers like longer than I felt was probably appropriate. Like I watched it up to maybe like 8th or 9th grade, and that would have been when Lost Galaxy was airing. I loved Power Rangers in Space a whole lot.
Yeah.
And Lost Galaxy kind of continued sort of the tone of that, but I kind of tuned out about halfway through, I think. And then I kind of wasn't really engaging with Toku for like basically not until college when I started to hear about Tokusatsu starting to get fan subs. And so the gateway for me there was actually the show that was airing at the time, Kamen Rider Kabuto.
Yeah. Oh, man. We're buddies now, you and I. We're like, I'm going to follow you on Twitter right now. I don't think I am.
Oh, man. I've got the Pat endorsement.
Yeah. That was my first one.
Yeah. So after Kabuto, it was, I guess, between... oh, no, that's right. I think Den-O started right after Kabuto. And there was a pretty clear difference in tone to me. Like, it was definitely fun. But I think what I kind of liked about Kabuto was there was sort of a bit of an edge to it. And maybe that's kind of a cliche thing to say.
Right.
But, like, for me, what I kind of realized about what I would like in Tokusatsu, like, as an adult, was that I'd like it for the show to at least give me the option of fooling myself into thinking it's not a show made for 6-year-olds. And also, I'd like to be a little sad once in a while watching it. So naturally, my next show that I watched was Kamen Rider Faiz.
Hey, you're keeping it up, by the way. This is like a combo thing.
Oh, I love Kamen Rider Faiz.
Yeah.
And I watched a whole bunch of Decade, but I don't think I ever finished it. And then when I tried out Kamen Rider Double, that kind of, when I realized like there was a new change in direction in Kamen Rider where it was like, oh, it's getting more overtly toyetic. The acting is getting a bit too Disney Channel for my taste. And I kind of fell off Tokusatsu for an extended period of time again until I watched Special Police Robo Jan Person and became a high priest of the Church of Jan Person.
Oh, it's you? You're one of these. Okay. Every time I'm talking to Grant, I'm like, we should check out some Metal Heroes. And
Jan Person is phenomenally strange. I don't care if I have to think it's for children or not, because it's just completely insane. And it's just really fun. And I think also, like, I've been watching a lot of Metal Hero shows lately, like, just because there's a proliferation of fan subs of that stuff now, where there really wasn't at the time when I got into Toku. And I think it's kind of appropriate that the Kamen Rider shows I ended up liking, I feel like they take a lot of cues from Metal Hero aesthetics, like especially Kabuto, where basically like the shell forms that they have are kind of like Metal Hero forms. Oh, and actually, now that I think about it, I did watch a bit of Garo back then, and those 90s Kamen Rider standalone movies, because again, that fits the characteristic of, hey, these actually aren't made for children. Because Keita Amamiya is a crazy person, and he has just a visual flair for that sort of thing. So, like, as you can tell, most of my experience with Tokusatsu actually, when it's not a Power Rangers adaptation, I haven't really watched that much Sentai in general. It tends to not pass the sniff test with the, well, this is pretty overtly for children. And usually when there's a puppet that pops up, that's when I head for the hills. Like, I try...
Thank you for joining us for this puppet show.
I tried watching Geki Ranger, but I think that, like, immediately put me off. I think there was some kind of prominent puppet in there. Oh, and I watched a bit of Jetman, because Keita Amamiya directed that one.
Right. Okay. And those suits.
Yep.
Also, prominent puppet may be a really good name for this podcast episode. Just making a note for later.
Okay. Yeah.
So that's my rundown.
That might be our mascot's name too. I think we need a mascot.
That's good. You've got alliteration. It's catchy. That's branding right there.
Yeah, definitely. No, that's really great though. So how have you been feeling about Lupin Ranger versus Pattern Ranger, like going into it now, like the first 6 episodes? How do you feel about it?
It's definitely more compelling than the Sentai I've at least dipped my toes into. Like, even Jetman, I was like, well, this is okay. And that's probably blasphemy to some long-term Sentai fans, because I think that's one of the more beloved ones. But, like, it definitely has a unique stamp all its own. Actually, when I was first hearing about Lupin Ranger versus Pat Ranger coming out, it was such the concept of it sounded so not conventional Sentai. I actually thought it was a fan film that was going to be coming out. Also, it made me really, really hungry for the idea of a Lupin the Third versus Pat Labor movie. I never knew I wanted that so badly until this started. But, like, I like there's like a really distinct sense of direction in this. The competing teams are really cool. I love the design sensibility on the suits, like, because typically with Sentai teams, there's kind of the color and black or color and white. This has both. Mm-hmm. I like that they've got the ties that are not obvious until you see them animated in the henshin sequences.
Right, exactly.
And I love Pat Kaiser. Pat Kaiser's really good. I sure wish GoPros looked better. I love what they're going for. Like, they literally mounted a camera on a stuntman and just had them kind of cartwheel around the action. Like, that's great. Mm-hmm. But I just wish, like, I don't know, like GoPro footage, like, it tends to be a little more desaturated. It's kind of artificially sharpened. Like, it's always really jarring. Like, the fact that I'm like, oh, this is a different type of camera, it takes me out of it a little bit. But I like what they're going for.
Yeah, see, I think I dig the intent.
Yeah, the ambition is pretty cool.
Execution, like that they're trying it, like that, you know, especially in.
I want to see behind the scenes footage of the stuntman flipping around wearing the GoPro. That's what I want to see.
Yes.
Right. Because I don't think it's a drone. I'm pretty sure it's somebody wearing one.
Well, I mean, they had those aerial shots that I guess it could be another one jumping off with them, but it feels like it's passing through them or over them when it happens. So I'm not
right, and there's definitely some stabilization on the image, so it's probably somebody running around.
Mm-hmm. I would love that just for the spectacle.
Definitely.
Well, I think the interesting thing is, like, you know, because even though we all know all media is formulaic, but, like, you know, Tokusatsu tends to really lean into formulas, and, like, to even attempt something that kind of radically different, if you will. It's just good to know, like, okay, they're willing to innovate and try things, even if they don't always necessarily land. It's still a good sign, I think.
Oh, definitely.
So we're going into episode 7 here. Do we have any predictions or hopes for this episode, gang?
Well, this is another character-focused one, I think, but it's on a different set of characters than ones we've seen before. Which that's actually one thing I've really liked about the show so far, is that even if the plot's not necessarily progressing, we're learning more about the characters, which is something that's pretty good, I think.
Is there an earmark for Sentai when... Because with writer shows, it tends to be like, okay, we'll do a bunch of setup in the first 10-ish episodes, and then when we get to a certain point, this is when the training wheels come off. Like episode 12-ish or something for a writer series is typically when that happens. But is there something like that for Sentai, or...
I haven't watched enough Sentai to say that for sure. I know the tempo for Ultraman a lot better, but those tend to be 26 episode seasons, so it's a little different.
I know the tempo for Kamen Rider
yeah.
Build is just a runaway train.
Yep.
It's just they just have these wonderful little kind of arcing narratives where they give you a little bit of information at a time to kind of lead you into this greater sense of mystery. Like Super Sentai, or at least this particular season, I can't really speak for any others, and even Jetman, from what I saw of it, didn't really have... I'm sure at some point we'll get some kind of ultimate motive as to what the I almost called them the Monster Mafia, the Ganglers, what they're up to, because that's what they are.
Monster
That's
Mafia
pretty good. That would be that. I think that's what they might call it in Double... Shoot, was it called Double Justice, right?
Oh, Double Justice, yeah. in the
Henshin Helmet's Double Justice dub?
In the impending Saban adaptation.
Oh, yeah.
Do you think they would go with, the Goodfellas kind of accents? Because they have Italian names. Or would that be considered perpetuating an unfortunate stereotype?
Please do it.
Just ham it up.
I don't even care. I don't... Yeah. I mean, it's already...
Oh my god. Could you imagine...
At least one of them.
Could you imagine the main Gangler having, a Marlon Brando voice?
Please.
It's funny that you bring that up, because I think about this a lot. Like, when I was a kid, I watched Animaniacs, and I loved Animaniacs. It wasn't my favorite of those. I like Freakazoid the best, I think, but Animaniacs was really good too. And one of my favorite segments on there was the Good Feathers, where it was just the Goodfellas, but with pigeons,
which no child should get from watching it.
That's the thing. That's
one would hope.
I had no clue. I'd never seen. I just thought it was these guys are mafia birds or something. It never even dawned on me that it was a reference specifically to a movie.
And how prominently their roost was a statue of Martin Scorsese. Again, why would a child know who that is?
It was but it was, and that's the thing. It should not have worked, and yet it was one of my favorite bits on that show. So you know what? I say let's do it. Let's just lean into it. Let's just go full. Let's get guys like Pesci and stuff to actually do
my
voices.
goodness.
Why not? Wouldn't that be amazing?
Oh boy.
You get Steve Buscemi as geez, what's the grenade monster? Dora? What is it? Destra, right?
Destra, yeah.
Destra, I think.
Yeah. I'm good with Grenade Monster though.
He's got watermelon shoulders. It's pretty good.
I think I'm not really sure what to expect on this one. I think the nice thing has been, I think we'll probably get more on this ice villain that we got a quick shot of in the last episode.
I think we'll probably get to see Pat Kaiser use the motorcycle thing.
Oh yeah.
That makes sense.
Pat, you got any predictions?
Oh, I guess I would say I keep doing more like a wish, making wishes here, but I do want more of Pato Green or Pato, what? Shoot,
Pat Ranger 2.
I don't know the accounting word for Pato Sango.
I think he's number 2. I think he's Pat.
He's number
I think
2.
he's Pat
he's
Ren
number
2.
2. That's right. You're right.
Yeah.
Nico then. But yeah, Pato Green, whatever. I do want more of him because I don't really. We gotten little bits of him, but definitely way less than Red and Pink at this point.
Definitely. I'd really like some elaboration on. I think Destra mentioned it in the previous episode, or maybe the one before that. It's kind of weird that the Sentai teams, their Lupin collection items are different than the ones that the Ganglers have. Whereas
right.
Because it's true, right? Arsène Lupin. I don't know which way they're doing the chronology, but assuming that it's consistent with when the stories were written, he would be active at latest the early 20th century, and yet so much of the Lupin collection, at least on the Ranger side, is toys of sci-fi vehicles.
Yeah.
But on the Gangler side and the individual pieces, they're either actually for the most part they're mostly, from what I understand, either outright references to or cobbled together from previous props from previous Sentai series.
Really?
Yeah,
Is
there's
that
actually,
right?
if you go to the Ranger wiki, there's like a whole, they like list what each one is like a reference to.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I
Neat.
wonder if maybe there might even be like kind of a Gokaiger type angle at some point.
Interesting. Yeah, that would be fun.
Because this isn't an anniversary show, is it?
No.
Not 100%
Although it is
sure.
the last Heisei Sentai series. Well, no, Heisei period. Like the Heisei era ends after this year.
Right. I think that's part of why they were so willing to break the formula. Was it's like, hey guys, this is it. Like, it's gonna be so weird, and it's one of those things like it shouldn't matter, but like it's been Heisei for so long.
Right.
Like as a kaiju.
Well, it's been so long to the point that there is this arbitrary separation of Heisei versus Neo Heisei.
Right. Yeah. Where you have like, with Godzilla, you have like the Millennium era,
Right.
that kind of stuff. Like you have to make up these mini eras because it's just been Heisei for.
I've always
forever,
wondered
so.
if that's the case in Japan, that they also do that or not.
That'd be interesting to know.
I honestly, I never hear about it other than in reference
Yeah.
to Toku. It's such a
It makes sense for
specific thing.
Kamen Rider because there was that hiatus, but this is what, the 42nd consecutive Sentai series?
Hmm.
There's been a few.
Sounds right.
All right, guys, ready to watch that episode?
I'm down.
Let's do it.
この番組は楽しい時を作るグループ PRT とザ・コミックフィンドとご覧のスポンサーの提供でお送りします。
And we're back. I keep getting my wishes granted, guys. I keep asking for things and I keep getting them.
And
so.
Grant keeps getting his wishes padded. Hey!
Oh,
Tom, you're under arrest.
Whatever, I thought
I
I'd
was wide
undercut you because
open.
that's normally your thing.
It's true.
I stole your
Welcome
thing
to my
like
house.
a
Welcome to
phantom
my house.
thief.
No, I'm Zenigata shouting at the sky. Tom Ranger.
I'll get you.
So, how are we feeling, guys? What do we think about that episode?
I thought it was really cool. I liked the monster a
All right,
lot.
That's it. Pod
Yeah.
over. No.
I liked the monster a lot. I enjoyed the use of the GoPro this time around. There was some cool stuff that they did.
I got my focus on green and yellow, which is what I was hoping for.
Mm.
Because I didn't think it was going to be a green and blue anytime soon,
Mm.
which is what I would have expected. But no, there's no way I would have reached that conclusion. So this is what I wanted.
Yeah, I definitely I enjoyed it too. Really good action sequences in this one. It was nice having a bit of a focus on yellow and green kind of at the same time without feeling like it was split, if that makes sense. Like it didn't feel like it was giving half billing to any character, and yet it definitely focused on the two of them.
So I kind of mentioned it while we were watching, but do you guys think that they're going to become like a kind of a will they won't they sitcom type thing where she sort of like rejects his advances but is like playful about it?
I don't think she's into it. Like,
I don't think so
actually.
either, but like knowing the conventions of this sort of thing, I feel like they're going to try and
Right.
go for it.
I wasn't really you asked that question, and I wasn't quite sure, but then with those last few moments where Sakuya was like literally in a glow with no one else, and like he was like ahead of like over the moon with her, I was like, yeah.
At the very least, it's going to be played for laughs.
Sure.
Yeah,
sure.
or he'll die for her near the end. Something like
That would be a
Which,
turn.
like, is not
Just
mutually
straight up.
exclusive with it being played for laughs. I mean, who knows? No.
No, we also had a bit of that where we when they got eaten up.
Well, Pat, you want to do a quick rundown from the top, just a real fast one?
Oh yeah. So this time, Pato Ranger's just hanging out in the Lupin Rangers cafe. They hear about some monster going around eating up people at restaurants. This happens at a steakhouse. The Lupin Rangers confront it. Blue and red get eaten up. Meanwhile, yellow gets left behind, and she kind of goes into a kind of like a PTSD thing. She remembers the trauma from when her childhood friend that was her emotional support got frozen and crushed before becoming a Lupin Ranger. And then she ends up using Pato Green's advances, like his romantic interest in her as sort of bait to bait the monster out. They confront it at the next restaurant, and she works up the courage to remove the Lupin item, thus freeing everybody that's inside and still alive. And then we get a nice little wrap up with the Pato Rangers finishing it off in the Pato Kaiser and using the motorcycle yo-yo weapon, which is just super, super duper cool. And then a little bit of like it seems like they're cool outside of their uniforms, but Tsukasa Pato Pink gets the feeling or spots a physical pattern that they might be the Lupin Rangers. And then the episode
she kind of intuits and like has like a vision of them of like in their Phantom Thief outfits.
Right.
So once again,
yeah.
What is it? Pat Ren 3 or whatever. Pat Ren Pink. The most competent detective of the group. If not the most competent cop.
Yeah, no, I definitely was positive on this episode overall. I really enjoyed it. I think I liked a lot of the little touches. I think there's some things that I don't know if maybe it was a translation thing or something, but they sort of implied that Green was a kind of a player at one point.
Yeah.
But then he's
a couple points
just been a goofball. Yeah, a couple points they sort of implied that like, oh, he just kind of runs through paramours, so to speak, but that he's kind of playing games and stuff. But then like he's been such a goof up till now, and the whole episode frames it as Yellow not really wanting him, and as an audience member you certainly kind of have to agree with her take because he's kind of goofy. So that was a weird disconnect, but otherwise I really enjoyed this episode.
Yeah,
they had some cool kind of artistic flourishes in this one.
Oh yeah,
like I think Pat mentioned it too. I think Pat and I both had like a similar reaction when they show Lupin Red get devoured by the monster, not directly, but in a reflection.
Yeah, on the helmet and then
exactly.
in her eye.
Yeah,
that was nice.
And then later, when the Lupin Rangers do their finishing attack on what was his name? Was it Mayor Goo? It was like gourmet backwards and like Akita or something. But whatever, it was like weird dolphin spider hairy pants claw monster.
That's literally his name translated.
Yeah, they basically like cut down an entire forest around him, but it was like really had this kind of sense of excitement and dynamism to it. Like because they haven't really done anything like that yet, right?
They did the
no, not like this.
They did the merge attack.
Fireball?
Well, the merge attack with the Pat Rangers, but there wasn't as much of the environmental thing.
Well, I kind of felt like they were like shooting a lot of like individual like kind of weird little cutting projectiles, right?
Right. And the way they kind of the individuals merged, and then it wasn't really like a straight shot. It sort of like veered left and right kind of erratically and took the forest down and then also hit him. That was really, really, we haven't seen it was a kind of a chaotic attack, I guess. It was really, really good.
I guess it's the closest that the Lupin Rangers have come to like the traditional like bazooka combination attack.
Well, what about that episode where there were 3 Kairis, where there were 3 Lupin Reds? Didn't they do like a big mega attack there? Or was it all 5 of them, quote unquote? Or was it just, I'm trying to remember.
It was all 5 of them. I feel like it was all 5 of them doing like a big fireball, and we got that nice little heat effect on the ground.
That's right. This had the wind and the trees going down and the capes fluttering. It was, and just the direction on it was really nice. Like really, really good.
And then, I mean, we also have the other bazooka attack with the Pato Rangers, with them doing all of them fusing into one and then firing a big blast from there.
Right. I think the nice thing here was the inclusion of, like, I mean, this is a thing that, as much as I love, Sentai and Tokusatsu and all that kind of stuff, like, they don't always utilize the environment they're in. It's usually a backdrop. It's like, well, the fight in front of the beach is the same as the fight in front of the stadium, is the same as the fight in the woods. Like, they're just backgrounds for them. But here there was a real integration of the trees. There was a lot of use of, like, the leaves were kind of a good visual tick to a lot of their sweeping attacks and stuff. It was really nice. Really, really nice.
Speaking of different settings, actually one thing I kind of liked about this episode is the use of any kind of fights with monsters in, like, an interior. Like, they had 2 fights at, like, trendy restaurants, or at least that started there. And I guess they kind of had something similar in the first episode at the, like, underground casino. But I guess, like, I feel like I'm used to seeing monster fights, like, outside. So anytime it's, like, in a room, it feels kind of distinctive.
Yeah, and it's good that you mentioned that, because not only does that kind of fit the sort of, I mean, Cops and Robbers has a sort of urban connotation to it anyway. But there was also a bit where, when they were in the second restaurant, where Sakuya and where Green and Yellow were meeting for their lunch or whatever, once the fight moved outside and Yellow was still prepping, like, she was turning and you could see them fighting through the windows.
Right.
And that was just something
yeah.
like, we don't really see that a lot. Like people like a shot looking out at a fight that we can't quite make out. That was just an interesting framing for that.
I wonder if the motorcycle weapon, it turned out, is a yo-yo weapon. And I wonder if in Japanese pop culture there's kind of an association with the yo-yo and police. Because I know it was a fairly popular tokusatsu in the 80s, Skebondeka, which some people might be more familiar with in the later movie release, Yo-Yo Girl Cop. I think the name speaks for itself. She is a cop undercover as like a high school student who uses a yo-yo as a weapon.
Is that the one? The Sukuban is kind of like the long skirted.
She has like a black uniform with like
girl,
a red
right?
scarf.
Mm-hmm. Like I kind of picture. Oh, geez, it's kind of like an old school kind of bad girl.
Yeah, definitely.
Look.
It's kind of like a girl delinquent thing. Like the look of like the main character of Kill la Kill was heavily influenced by Skebondeka. And I think a couple of the latter movies were released here, not including Yo-Yo Girl Cop, but not with the original actress in the role. So I've heard that's a completely bananas show. But regardless, like, yeah, I wonder if that's kind of an indirect reference to it.
Yeah, it could be.
Could be. Yeah,
it could be.
I mean,
yeah.
I maybe before I would have thought it was a bit tenuous, but you mentioned when we were recording all the connections with the pieces being references to older, at least older Toku work. So that now, I mean, that door's certainly wide open. It could.
I think it's been limited just to Sentai stuff for now, and I'm certainly not an expert on this. But I mean, like, this stuff does happen.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Like, I just found out that, like, the Metal Hero character Jiraiya just randomly shows up in an episode of Ninja, and it's just, like, nobody remarks on it being weird. So, you never know.
Were they promoting something? Or was it just, I mean, it's a ninja show, so let's
exactly,
throw a ninja
yeah. Because the subtitle for, like,
Hmm.
Jiraiya is, like, World Ninja War Jiraiya. That was also, I think, around the time when they were kind of trying to float Metal Hero back into, like, the consciousness, where they were, because I think, like, Gyavan shows up in Go Busters. The weird thing about and this is maybe a little bit of a tangent, the weird thing about the Metal Hero stuff is that, like, when they brought Kamen Rider back after, like, his little hiatus, they didn't, like, try to bring back Kamen Rider 1 and 2 or Kamen Rider Stronger, like, in a Sentai show. They just made a new Kamen Rider show. But they're not doing that with Metal Hero. They're just like, well, here's a Gyavan movie, Space Sheriff movie, but no new original Metal Hero. It's kind of weird.
Right. Yeah.
I guess that's the case, but, like, that's sort of, I think, how we ended up with Kamen Rider the first and the next, right?
Yeah, but, like, that's all. But all
before they really brought back Showa stuff.
True. This is kind of the opposite of that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's my fault. That tangent is my fault.
Yeah. No, it's fine.
Regardless,
Sorry,
yo-yo motorcycle, possible Skebondeka reference is all I'm saying.
And I really like the weapon. It's interesting and fun. I think, Pat, like you mentioned during the recording, as long as it's not a sword, it tends to be exciting and different, and that is definitely the case.
It was a dope finishing move. It was really cool.
Yeah,
looked great. And just I think that was another thing that I really liked about this one was the little touches, like Pink is the most capable Pat Ranger, so she notices the subtle detective thing of just, like, noticing people and people watching, and she just picks up on, it wasn't really like him, Kairi Lupin Red pulling on Yellow's nose wasn't like a super big call out when it happened earlier, but then she just picks up on it. That was nice. Mm-hmm. Or the fun little thing with Good Striker, where at the very end, Good Striker shows up. He's like, hey, Lupin Rangers, let's go do it. And they're like, we're done, bye. And, like, they just throw him off, and he's like heartbroken. And the Pat Rangers show up, and he's like, and they're like, hey, Good Striker, just who we're looking for. He's like, it's nice to be wanted. It's just a fun little moment you can have with a flying plane puppet thing. Like,
it is kind of great that the Lupin Rangers just kind of lost their patience with them. It's like, look, we're not letting this be an arbitrary choice. Just go with the other guys. Right. Like, they're your second choice. Go with them.
We were in a stomach all day.
Oh, that's true. They've been through a lot at that point. They were ready to hit the hay. I feel like we're seeing a lot more Pat Kaiser than Lupin Kaiser overall.
Agreed. Totally agreed.
Which I'm not complaining.
Well, then,
yeah,
right. We found out it's your favoring one over the other, and that's
my preference.
I don't blame you. We saw some really cool stuff this time, so I guess.
I think that's another interesting thing, that because there are two distinct teams, you can sometimes have one team do something that like if it were just one team, the main team, you couldn't have them do. Like you couldn't have a character like Good Striker show up and have the main team just go, no, we're not turning into a giant robot. Like you couldn't do that in a regular season. But because you have two teams, you could have one team go, no, and the other team takes it and it's fine. Like that's an interesting dynamic that I hadn't really considered.
That's true, because otherwise it's
Yeah.
the Sentai team's like responsibility. They just have to do it, but they can just kind of blow
they
it
just
off.
do it, well, we gotta. But like Lupin Ranger can be like, no, we're done here. See ya. Like,
Go with those other guys; they can handle it.
yeah. So it's just interesting, you know. So guys, any other thoughts or anything before we head over to the Twitter questions?
I still want my double fusion attack on the ground, but
That's true.
you know, while I'm making wishes here and while they're being granted, might as well say it out loud again.
I want there to be a sequence of the Pat Kaiser arresting a giant monster and then taking him to giant monster jail. Like, I want there to be giant robot handcuffs.
That would be amazing.
And then
What
that would be
if-
wonderful.
No.
And then, like, they'd have
I
a
didn't know I wanted
sequence
this.
of, like, a giant monster in, like, a room with, like, a huge, like, spotlight on him with, like, Pat Kaiser, like, interrogating him. Being like, you did it, didn't you? Tell us where the ganglers are.
So this won't happen until we get both Lupin Kaiser and Pata Kaiser, because then we can have a giant good cop and a giant bad cop.
Well, but you could also do like an actual giant building, and then have Lupin Kaiser sneak in and steal something like the size of a
Oh
city
my
block.
god. That has to be, like, the mid-season finale, right, though? That, like, somehow Lupin Kaiser and Pat Kaiser can exist at the same time and square off. Because, I mean, like, that's the obvious course of action. At some
Yeah,
point,
right.
you're going to have a robot fight.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, got to.
Oh, I that was the last thing I think was we actually got to see kind of the scale of Pata Kaiser versus Gourmet
that's right.
Reverse. Like he's like two heads taller.
Yeah,
We're
That
like,
ruled.
whoa, holy cow!
Yeah, Pat Kaiser is a big boy by internet definitions, certainly.
Big.
I'm in
And
awe of this
with a big
this
appetite.
absolute unit.
Oh, wait, I have it backwards. Yeah. Small boy has a big appetite.
Yeah,
I
he's
ruined it.
overcompensating.
God, cut the feed. We just have to redo this whole episode. We're
jeez.
done. Alrighty. Well, I guess it's time to get into these Twitter questions. We have quite a few to get through. So, without further ado, from Champstus, they ask us, what older tokusatsu shows do y'all think could benefit from advancements in production details, or even just from probably larger budgets, if they were revived or rebooted nowadays?
Tom?
So I thought about this a little bit, and the answer I arrived at was actually Just Beyond, which was one of, if not the first, Metal Hero shows after the kind of Space Sheriff shows. And kind of the premise of that one is that the main character is kind of going around to different planets and eventually fights a giant monster and his own giant robot, which is not typical for Metal Hero shows. But, you know, he is going from planet to planet and to various kind of Mos Eisley Cantina-esque scenarios. But I haven't seen it that far through, but from what I understand, because my impression for watching it the first time was like, man, how can they keep this up? They have all these alien costumes and these unique locales that, you know, only slightly look like different rock quarries. How can they keep this up? From what I understand, they don't. And after a few episodes, they just stick around Earth for the rest of it.
Alright.
So, like,
ran
if
out.
they were to actually, in earnest, to do kind of like something like Juspian, or even just make Juspian, where they kind of preserve that sort of galaxy trotting space opera aspect of it, without having to be like, well, we'll just shoot it around Tokyo. I think that would be really cool.
Yeah, I like that. Pat, do you have one?
I mean, my go-to answer for this actually probably would have been Gridman, but we're getting
Right.
that already, so there it is.
Gridman is so interesting, though, because it's so dated. Like, I think it's one of
Yeah.
the first Toku shows to be shot on video, and boy, does it show.
That's true.
It's got these really cheesy video effects to it, or digital effects, which kind of makes sense because it's like a really like quaint view of like what the internet was like.
Mhm.
Oh, it's something.
It's also something that, like, because it's a Super I production, like modern Super I productions are just like really, really nice, at least in my opinion. So like having them go back and, you know, redo some of their older stuff. I mean, that's not really older, but like you're saying, it's certainly a little bit dated. I'd love to see, you know, a modern take that's up to the standards of, you know, or
yeah, I'll be really curious to see what
whatever.
Gridman but with Twitter looks like.
Oh boy. I gotta say and this is I don't mean to diminish this too much because I'm excited to have this because it just looks really cool. But there's something lost when you go from live action to animation. Like there's a charm
Sure.
of the hard suits. You know, seeing that in action and seeing the stunts that they have to coordinate, that won't translate the same to it being animated.
Sure.
Even though I welcome it, I'm definitely happy that this kind of thing is.
Did
being
you
made.
see the original Trigger short of Gridman? I think Gridman Boys Create Giant Hero, I think is what it's called.
No.
I did not.
I highly recommend it. It's basically the reason that Trigger is making a Gridman thing is that their director Akira Amamiya is a huge Gridman fan, and it's very clear from watching that short because there's so much passion put into it, but also so when like Gridman like combines with the different like robotic components, the robot components have like giant screws on the back, so it's like it's like evoking his nostalgia for like the toys.
Nice.
Also, like
Okay.
the framing narrative of it is from Gridman Sigma, which is a canceled sequel season. So that guy is like a mega fan of Gridman, and he's one of the people working on this new one.
That is
So
exciting.
it's definitely a passion project.
All the promo stuff for it so far seemed a little kind of self-serious, which I don't know that I really want, considering what came before. But I'm willing to give them the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah, I don't want to get too far off Champ's question.
Oh,
because
sorry.
Kind of,
Oh, yeah.
Kind of
Whoops.
booing off what you were saying, Pat, that, you know, it's not going to be the same as Suitmation, and I totally agree. I mean, I will forever be the chief cardinal of the Church of Practical Effects. But something like this, because of its unique crossover potential, this is one of those things where, to me, this is like those old traps for animals where you have the cardboard box, like on a stick, and there's like a treat, and you wait for it to get in there and you pull the stick away, right? Like this is like Gridmanime is sitting there and I'm waiting for someone to come over and go, hey, what's all this Toku stuff about? And then we've got them, you know what I mean? Then we're hooked, and we can introduce new people to the wonders of Suitmation, where otherwise maybe that bridge wouldn't be there and they couldn't cross over like that.
And then it's a big hit, and Shout Factory releases Gridman on DVD.
Oh, please,
Ooh.
Lord.
They released
Grant.
Superhuman Samurai Cyber Squad.
That's true.
I
Shout
think.
Factory does the Lord's work. They
They
did.
do. I'm still waiting for that B-Fighter release, but I don't know how many people are thirsting for Beetleborg's nostalgia.
Honestly, we're already farther into I mean, obviously they started with Zyuranger, but they've released it more than I ever expected. So my hope is that'll just continue, and I'll just keep having my expectations, broken, and they'll just keep going. But anyway, back to Champ's question specifically. What Toku would benefit from advancements? That's always a weird one, because especially for myself, part of the charm for a lot of these shows is that they are clearly older. Like, when I watch Ultraman 66 and I see the strings, that does more for me than not seeing the strings. But I think one that I guess I'll come out and do, this is kind of a basic pick, I guess, but Battle Fever J, which was the series that was the second co-production with Marvel, the first being Spider-Man. But Battle Fever J has some light kind of Marvel aesthetics or connections. I mean, if we're already doing the Infinity War meme, let's bring Battle Fever J into the MCU. I don't care. Like, let's do it. Like, let's update it. Let's make the connections like 100% obvious, and like let's bring it in. I mean, how great would that be? I mean,
I gotta say this now, since we're kind of touching on that now. The Spider-Man, like, I didn't even cross my mind, so I feel silly. But when Spider-Verse was going on, I don't know if you guys following Spider-Man.
I think I know where you're going with
at
this.
all. They actually, so they said, it's one of those like every Spider-Man from every possibility ever, and they brought in 70s live action.
Did they have
Spider-Man
70s?
who
Did they have
showed
70s
up.
manga Spider-Man too?
They had
That's awesome.
they had like 4 Japanese Spider-Men. Like,
That's amazing.
so it was so good. Like, I mean, like, you know, overall, I would say that it kind of resolved in a way that wasn't satisfying, but as a crossover, in terms of weird crossover hype, it was just a blast.
I definitely saw an image of Leopardon being shared around.
Yes.
Also,
Yes.
like, so this, you know, take this, I guess, with the spirit in which it's intended. There's a little movie coming out pretty soon. It's called Ready Player One. In the book,
The original
Leopardon is in the book.
Yeah, Leopardon is
Really?
in the book,
So if you're like me,
yeah,
did not like the book at all, but also are a rube. So I'm seeing that movie because of the Gundam, isn't it?
See, I'm in a weird place with that. God,
So,
we're on such a
I get
tangent.
to live
here.
in that shame. Well, there you go. So there's your potential high budget live action Spider-Man. Maybe Leopardon is in Ready Player One.
Maybe.
Okay.
Anyway,
Let's keep moving now.
So this one comes to us from David Skazny. I think that's how you say it. I apologize if it's not. If you could pick an older Sentai team to guest star as a temporary third faction for a crossover special, which team would each of you choose and why? Tom, I think we started with you last time. Pat, let's start with you on this one. Or you can pass if you
What
want.
would be? No. I'm thinking like, it would have to be. Would it have to be the theme? I mean, I'm gonna be lazy on this one. Sorry, but so we have Phantom Thieves and we have cops, and who else is above the law but pirates? Let's throw in some Gokaiger to mess around. I think that's enough of a reason, right?
I mean, that's fair.
Also capes. Right? They have capes.
True, they do have capes.
No, they don't. Do they?
have the
Yes, they
collars.
do. Or at least Captain Marvelous does.
Wait, is there a character named that?
Yes, that's the
That's
red
very good.
Gokaiger. Yeah.
As a possible third team in a crossover special, I guess I'll go on kind of a weird one here. And I have a super specific and basic reason yet again. I'm gonna go with Gingaman. Which we would know as Lost Galaxy Power Rangers. Just because I don't know what it is about their suits. I don't know what it is about. Something about that Charlie Brown zigzag on their chest.
That's what I remember.
It's such a weird visual kind of like tick that I don't really think exists on any of the other suits that I can think of. And you just always know Gingaman because you're like, look, this is Charlie Brown, guys. And like, I don't know, it makes them very visually distinct. And I think it's a fun season anyway. I haven't finished it, but it's a fun season. And I mean, Animal Mecha always works. But yeah, I think just because the suits are so bizarre looking, like you can always pick them out of a lineup. Like you're like, oh, there's Gingaman. Like,
Is it okay if I cheat a little bit?
how dare you?
I feel like we've
Okay.
been doing that. So
I'm gonna go ahead and say it's not a Sentai team. Space Sheriffs. Because it would be another 3. It would be another. I'm not super knowledgeable about which Sentai teams have 3 people. I know that happens. I know it's not the norm, but there are 3 Space Sheriffs. There's Gavan, Charivan. Wait, not Charivan. Gavan, Charivan, and Shider. And they were in a crossover movie with Deca Ranger, so as the Space Squad. So why not with these folks? And with them being an extra terrestrial law enforcement organization, that doesn't necessarily mean that they would be seeing eye to eye with Earth law enforcement either, which normally they would, but you could work in that contrivance if you want to.
Well, you know what? Just to mix it up, then Gokaiger would be perfect because we got the space pirates, we got the space sheriffs, we got the regular cops, and the regular
Gokaiger
thieves,
actually was
right?
like kind of the avenue of them to trying to start reintroducing the Metal Hero stuff,
right.
Because there was the first one that I think, as far as I know, the first one that kicked that off was the Gavan Gokaiger movie, which I only saw recently. Pretty entertaining. So that's my cheat answer. I don't really have a Sentai answer for that, unfortunately.
You cited precedent. I mean, Deca Ranger, that works. That's all good.
I feel like I feel like I was thinking about saying Deca Ranger, but then we'd have like 8 cops. Doesn't really seem fair.
Bring in Turbo Ranger or Car Ranger 2 with what's his name? Blue Sentry. Is that his name? I'm trying to think of the cop in Car Ranger.
Oh yeah, that guy's great.
Yeah, he's great. He's funny.
Hmm.
Okay, so this one comes to us from Alex, who's asked prior questions. Good to see you again, Alex. Which Sentai stock episode plots, body swapping, arranged marriage, etc., make you roll your eyes every time you see them? Conversely, which ones make you think, ooh, this is going to be a good episode? I can lead with this one if you guys want.
Yeah, take the lead.
So in terms of ones that I like, I actually really like body swapping as a trope, just because I get a kick out of seeing, I think it's an acting exercise, seeing actors try to be other actors. I think that's really, I also have a proclivity towards the film Face Off, which is just one of like
okay.
Not a reference I was expecting to hear.
Yeah, I was like, where's he going?
I'm just saying that John Woo directing a film about Nicolas Cage playing John Travolta while John Travolta plays Nicolas Cage. Tell me, if that had come out in 2018, Twitter wouldn't even, like, it would just melt. I'm telling you. But I like body swapping because I think it's an interesting acting exercise, and I think you get to see, I think I've seen a number of actors that I didn't necessarily think were all that great, and then there's a sort of body swap scenario, and then I'm like, actually they can do it. So I always think that's interesting. In terms of which ones make me roll my eyes, I think this isn't just a Sentai trope per se, but the betrayal by the team leader is one that just never, like, I don't know, it feels very basic to me. Like, it's, oh, this is our good guy leader, and oh, they weren't what they appeared to be. It is what it is. It's not my favorite thing.
Like maybe with Kogure or something.
Yeah, like, I've already predicted it, but I feel like it's just, I don't really want it. Like,
it's a little obvious.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's
I
just
think
too
I'm
much.
going to
It's too
throw
much.
in for that. I think a traitor on the team, like, it just makes me anxious whenever I see it, like, or they allude to it, like one of them is a traitor, and you're gonna find out that it was totally not the obvious one.
And they've kind of set that up already, right? Where it's like the boss gang was like, Destra is like, I got somebody on the inside.
Yeah, that's right. Shoot. Okay. Well, let's see how they handle it. I mean, it can be handled well. Like, I guess we got, without saying too much, but we got some of that in build, and I was actually pretty happy with how that
was really
resolved.
Good.
But without saying too much, I don't want to. That's not what we're talking about here.
Watch build.
But overall, I think that just makes me watch build, Grant. That just makes me anxious rather than roll my eyes, though. I don't know anything that.
It's almost hard to
Gets
roll
me
your
super
eyes at
duper
a
excited.
trope in a Toku series, just because, like, I'm here for the tropes to some degree.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Like, if I rolled my eyes at things, I wouldn't watch Toku at all, truthfully, because it's silly and tropey. You kind of have, that's the fun, is you buy in, but,
Yeah.
So
Oh no, they're doing this again?
I don't know if I've seen enough Sentai specifically to really comment, so I'm going to give a joke answer. I'd like there for at some point that the Lupin Rangers and Pat Rangers will have to share an apartment, and they'll get upset with each other, and put a piece of masking tape down the center of the apartment where they can't cross to the other side.
You can't steal anything from
That's
the other
right.
side of this
But
room.
your side has
Well, you can't arrest
But your
anything
side has
from
the
this side of the room.
bathroom.
Oh my God.
Okay, so now I have to
All right.
ask, who's the messy one? Like, who's the messy one? And I'm the uptight one. Like,
So I guess that doesn't answer whether I think it's good or not, but I think the response is clear that would be very good.
Yeah.
That
I think we would just be rolling. Everyone would simultaneously fall out of their
yeah,
chairs.
I made kind of a joke during this episode when we were watching about the part where they were like swallowed. It's like, oh, I guess we've got a Sentai bottle episode. I would love to see that Sentai bottle episode of them just being like locked in an apartment together. We're gonna sort this out until you solve your problems.
Well, if they do this, it'd probably be something like they both get caught by the ganglers, and then they're in their compound
That's
or
probably
whatever.
going to happen, isn't it?
yeah.
Right?
Or-
There it is.
Or we're going to see something where the Pat Rangers get removed from the force or something due to internal affairs, and they have to, like, shack up with the Lupin Rangers at some point. Like, that could very well happen.
Oh man, on the topic of cliches, I really want Hilltop doesn't seem like that kind of guy, but I want him to call somebody a loose cannon.
He's got to, right?
Oh, that'll be that'll be the extra Pat Ranger. That'll be the fourth Pat Ranger. He'll be a loose cannon.
There you go.
Or he was a loose cannon, and they have to bring him back to the force because he's just too good a cop.
Just also, oh no, it was just in my head and now it's gone. Oh, I remember. This is something that just thinking about it here, you guys mentioned, or Tom just mentioned them getting swallowed again. I had a lot of Mighty Morphin flashbacks in this episode because Mighty Morphin, one of the things they did all the time in those first couple of seasons of Power Rangers was like, okay, we need another dimension. Let's just do a dark room with some dry ice on the floor, and this is a new dimension. And so, like, them being in the stomach, but it's basically just a dark space with some dry ice on the floor. I was like, wow,
full of chairs.
Dimension right now. Yeah, right. It's like
they were kind of playing like an actual version of The Floor is Lava at one point.
Right?
The floor is the abyss. So let's all make a big stack of chairs and just kind of chill here for a bit.
Right.
Did he have his glove? He threw his glove off because it got digested a little bit, but did he have his glove when they came out? I actually didn't check.
Well, regardless,
that's a good question.
to be a proper Phantom Thief, you have to be prepared with the with backup
That's
styles.
True. Yeah. Can't leave fingerprints.
Of course.
That is true.
Okay, so this one comes to us from our good buddy Winston Chan. What are your favorite opening and closing Sentai theme songs? Wow, that's a big question. Shinkenger's is one of mine. We'll also never not love the MMPR opening theme. So I specifically wanted to read the rest of that because we are including Power Rangers in this. So that, I mean, again, we talk about this a lot. I love when people ask those questions, but when people ask favorites, like, I can't pick between my children. So there's no favorite. There's just things I like and I will mention on the pod because they come to mind.
Whatever surfaces, I think. I want to say that one of our first encounters, I'm sure, was one of us doing the lyrics for Die Ranger.
Yes.
And the other one doing a follow-up. So
Right.
I think that's...
I
think that uniting force...
I mean, it's such a jam. It's...
Mhm.
Oh, that is a good
It's just
one.
too good. It's too good.
Yeah.
I mean, so I'm gonna...
Too powerful.
I'll lead here a little. Well, I guess not lead because Pat mentioned Die Ranger, which is just eternally great. So a couple that come to mind. I love the Deca Ranger OP. Something about that opening guitar riff with the sirens is just... It's just perfect. Oh my god, it's really great. And to give a shout out to sort of an older show, I really like the Dynaman OP a lot. It's got kind of this almost jazzy feel to it with some of the percussive elements I really dig. And then to throw a bone to Power Rangers, I absolutely adore the Dino Charge OP. I think that thing is bulletproof. I think it's fantastic.
So
I think I'm going to have to check that one out.
It's good.
I have an answer for each. Sentai, I love the Jetman opening. Just that kind of spirited chanting of Jetman over and over again.
Yeah.
Also, I think I first got introduced to Jetman actually through the NES game, the Famicom game, which has a really nice like 8-bit rendition of it, which is really cool. And for Power Rangers, I know people love the original Mighty Morphin theme, but for me, there's only one choice here, and that is to set controls for outer space. Go flying higher than ever before. It's Power Rangers in space. It's such a good theme song.
It's really good. It is. In space is it's one of the high watermarks for that.
There's like that kind of guy coming over the comments like, in space. It's so good.
God, In Space is a really good season.
Having watched the Power Rangers 2017 movie in the last 2 weeks, was that 2 weeks ago now? It was a given, but when the Mighty Morphin song fired up, I was like giddy, like genuinely, like I was like shaking, like what's happening? I look over at my wife, and she was like, "Yep, they were gonna do it at some point," and I don't know why you're surprised, but she was like, she was bopping. Come on,
I think my reaction at that point was just like, sure, why not? It was completely incongruous with everything else that came before. But it was going to happen at some point, and, whatever. Yeah. Krispy Kreme. It's just all I'm going to say about that.
I heard an interesting anecdote. I don't remember. Maybe this was on Ranger Danger. Maybe this was on Toku Ladies Pod. I don't recall. Another show, a better show, I'm sure, talked about an interesting anecdote where... because Ron Wasserman composed the original MMPR theme, and we all know it's a jam. It's iconic. But I guess he met Van Halen, who is obviously a legendary guitarist as well. and he was like, hey, my son loves that show, and I'm trying to learn to play the theme for him. How do you do those triplets? Because they're like really intense. And he's like, well, I was doing it on a keyboard, so, you know, it doesn't quite translate. But he was kind of like, oh, okay. But like, what a just a weird little anecdote.
You know what, though? That's what you call ingenuity. That's what you call working smart.
I just like the idea of Eddie Van Halen sitting around going, how do you play the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers theme? That's just a thing that I didn't know happened in our world, but it did. It makes me happy.
I love it.
It's very good.
I love it when Toku bleeds or like kind of into mainstream things a little bit.
Right.
Like there was this is something that just hit me just now, but I think this might have been in Be Cool, like the sequel to Get Shorty.
Oh, okay.
I want to say this is the one because Uma Thurman shows up in the movie, and then she's running a movie studio. It's been years, so I don't 100% remember this, but she shows up, and then in her office in the background there is a Kamen Rider statue, like in a Hollywood movie, and I was like, what is that doing there? How did that get to the... I'm gonna have to find the screenshot of it.
I had something like that happen the last time I rewatched Seinfeld. There's a point where I think George is like illustrating some scenario with like a dollhouse or like a diorama he made with like a shoebox or something. Mm-hmm. He's representing himself with a red Zeo Power Ranger figure in the scenario.
What?
I know.
Fantastic.
I tweeted it a while back because I was like, this is just... It's always weird to see that stuff acknowledged by like greater pop culture, even though it's like Power Rangers is, if nothing else, mainstream pop culture. But like to see it in Seinfeld of all places.
See, now I'm imagining in the middle of Zeo, they do the changeover like they did in Turbo, but instead of like Tommy handing off the red powers to TJ, he's handing the red powers over to George Costanza.
The Power Rangers Festivus special.
Well, George is obviously the secret weeb. Like he has his like secret closet that's just full of toku and body pillows and everything.
I mean, headcanon accepted. I mean, it's there.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Yeah.
All right, so we've got one last question here from Patrice over at Legion of Boom. Hey, Patrice, how's it going?
What up?
He asks, if you could adapt any pre-Zyu Ranger Super Sentai into a season of Power Rangers, which one would you pick, and why did you pick that particular one? I like this question. I like the Power Rangers focused here because I'm a bit of an apologist. So,
Jetman, because I want to buy all the Jetman stuff, and I'm sure there are lots of people who would also like that.
Yep.
Shout out to Daisy, always posting birds.
Right.
That's kind of my secret hope, is that Shout Factory decides to
Rangers.
Take like one step backwards and be like, well, let's do the season before Zyu Ranger.
That's my hope. Please.
That would be so good.
Please, are you listening, Shout Factory?
Or maybe like, hey, let's release the Sentai shows that were popular in Latin America.
Yes.
Because that's my answer is Dynaman. Because I really like the giant robot in it. I know nothing else about it. It has a great mecha in it.
That's reason enough. I like both those reasons, both especially for the toyetic angle there of buying good toys. I'm gonna go with one that's similarly shallow from a series that I've not seen, Mask Man. I haven't seen any of Mask Man, but I love the suit designs, and particularly I love the mecha in it. They have it kind of the variety of it makes me feel like the Power Rangers adaptation because Power Rangers always takes its own spin on what's going on. I feel like you could do kind of like almost like a speed racer thing where it's like a racing theme, but it's not like a stock car racing thing. It's like a dangerous, like, you know, we're a race team and we have to go to all these crazy locales and there's going to be cheating and stuff on the tracks.
Wacky races. You want a wacky races Sentai?
I want wacky races Power Rangers, and like, would that not be incredible? Like,
from what I understand,
yes.
What I understand, Wacky Races like is known in Japan.
Really.
I mean, its DNA is
the foundation of
there's
Mario Kart.
There's like
in Red Line.
It's actually funny. There's like an SD Gundam OVA that the premise of it is just wacky races with Gundam characters, but because parody laws are more strict in Japan, when they released it on DVD, like all the SD Gundam stuff, they couldn't include that one, which is a bummer.
Hey, yeah, that reminds me, Dastardly and Muttley, I mean, not Dastardly and not Muttley, just straight up showed up in that Pop Team Epic.
That's right,
Wacky
and they were
Races.
blurred.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's funny.
so that's
Yep,
something.
Yeah, they know. Wacky Races, from what I understand, was popular
Nice.
in Japan when it aired. It definitely seems like it must have been an
Wonder why.
influence in like Tatsunoko anime. Like I feel like there's some shared DNA there.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's like, and it's something we don't often think of, but I know Sean, Colony Drop, Mr. Zimmerman himself, has mentioned repeatedly, and it's something, a connection I just never perceived, but now I see it everywhere. Thunderbirds and the impact Thunderbirds have.
Thunderbirds
Right.
is huge for Toku, for Mecha.
Yeah, like
For
Yeah,
puppets.
Thunderbirds and wrestling, I think, are two of the things that inform things like Tokusatsu most.
yeah, definitely. And it's one of those things like where if you had told me Thunderbirds is really big in Japan, my first reaction is like, what really? And then I go, oh no, okay, yeah, wait, you're right.
I mean,
That's
you're an
the-
Ultraman
it's the
fan. That
missing
should be
link.
obvious to you.
Well, I mean, obviously there's a heavy spy Thunderbirds, Twilight Zone feel to Ultraman, but it's just one of those things you don't always have it at the forefront. You know what I mean? Because it's almost completely faded in our pop culture consciousness, really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
It's in the foundation, though.
no, most definitely. Well, guys, a lot of really great questions. Thanks to everybody for asking, and thanks to Tom for being here. We really appreciate it.
It was my pleasure.
We definitely would like to have you back on later, and I'm sure if we do something Metal Heroes related, you're going to be there, whether we ask you to be on or not. Honestly, so
I'll just
Mhm.
I'll get a grid bracer and I'll go through the net. And I know I'm doing a Tsuburaya thing right now, but
that's okay.
whatever.
It's welcome.
In this house, we
Mhm.
appreciate that.
Yeah.
So, but Pat, do you want to tell the people a little bit about our thanks to them for asking questions?
Yes. Okay. Thank you very much, everybody who sent in questions. We really appreciate it. It adds to our discussion. And then, as our thank you to you, we're going to be drawing names from everybody who submitted questions for the shirt, which sports our super duper cool design, and that will be the next show. So I guess Monday when we're recording, we'll either put it at the top or like put it out with the episode. But the sooner we get it to y'all, the better, because I really just want to get it out there.
Yeah, and it's really exciting, and I think it's definitely one of those things where if you ask questions of us on the show, we'll put your name in the hat. I mean, and obviously everybody's done really great asking great questions, but now there's a prize on the line. It's up to us what constitutes a good question. Don't just go in there and make Hong Kong noises in the mentions. But if you ask a question that we can discuss on the show, we'll put your name in the hat, and we'll do drawings every month, and that's really exciting.
The dial-shaped top hat.
Yeah, that's it. That's coming next. How did you show him already, Pat? Did you show him the
I
mock-ups you were
didn't
doing?
mean to. But now, thanks,
Well,
Tom.
it's those Gridman abilities.
Yeah. All right. Thanks for tuning in to the Super Senpai Podcast. We'll notice you again next time.
Super Senpai Podcast.